Hi, I'm Jeff Bermudez.
And I'm Omar Kadri.
Welcome to The Collective Journey.
Join us as we explore some of the most promising talents, thought leaders, and change influencers in our city and beyond.
As we uncover these hidden gems, I hope you'll find that they're people just like you and I, with hopes and dreams and gifts that they would like to show to the world.
It is our mission to share their work, to share their story, and to appreciate what our community is capable of producing.
This is my adventure.
This is your adventure.
This is our collective journey. Welcome to another installment of The Collective Journey. With Matt last week, we tackled various topics, such as his history in martial arts, his struggles with depression, and his overcoming of a physical illness. Now, we focus on the possibilities. We discuss the importance of physical fitness and positive relationships, and we take a dive into the mysterious world of private investigating. This is our concluding episode to the Matt Baleka arc. Enjoy.
I would love to give some inspirational story about how martial arts was the thing that got me out of chronic depression, but it didn't. I'd actually have to say the thing that did was falling flat on my ass to the point where I had nowhere else to go. I almost ended up homeless at one point, and I ended up having to take medication and was living on my own. I wasn't too happy. I was still trying to do martial arts then, but not to much avail. I stopped going to the gym. Gained a bunch of weight back. I was a fat 225 at that point, I was 215, and I had a big old belly, man. Like, I had to do a lot of work to kind of come back from that, but a lot of it was the people I chose to have in my life. And when I realized that, I can pick and choose my friends a bit more. I don't owe anybody anything. That's kind of what started getting me out of it. I had a really abusive relationship with an ex-girlfriend at the time that went real horribly wrong. And then I ended up, with some friends who weren't necessarily the greatest. They weren't the worst, but they weren't the greatest. I will say they did help me get back into the gym.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I guess that's a good part of it.
That's a benefit, right? But, that's something that I should have come to on my own, I realized. And, I had to do a lot of hard work. I had to just force myself out every day. And it was kind of when I realized that I got fat, that I realized I got to fight this stuff, right? I got to get off these antidepressants. Like, don't get me wrong, antidepressants help for the first bit, but in my opinion, nobody should be on them more than a year unless it's really serious. But, the thing that really turned it around for me was just realizing I had to become a stronger person on my own. And then finally, I met the woman that I'm with now, and she really kind of motivated me to make that final push. She's the one who really actually kicks my ass to go and train a lot. So she always tells me, don't wait up for me. You just go and do what you got to do. And she's very supportive of my dreams that way.
Does she train too?
She doesn't.
No. But
she certainly comes along and watches when she can. She's a nurse.
Okay.
So she's pretty busy, and she works late. But she's come with me to Adrenaline a few times, and she'll come and work out with me at the gym. But, at least 3 days a week out of the 6 that I prefer to go.
One of my friends is a motivational speaker. And
Awesome.
I think one thing that really changed the way I thought about how I would approach working out or any task that I had was he said that discipline is leagues beyond motivation.
It is.
Because motivation is very fickle. It'll come in and out.
Fleeting. It's
very
actually
fleeting.
It's kind of like attraction that way.
Yeah.
Physical attraction, when it's not backed up by anything, is a very fleeting sensation. And unfortunately, we live in a culture that really enforces instant gratification. They think motivation works the same way. And it's like, no, that motivation is the thing that kind of acts like the pilot for it, right? It's going to be that initial little spark. But then you need to have discipline. And discipline is the hard part, because discipline comes from doing the same thing every day with dedication. You've got to be on your own case for things. If you know that you want something, you've got to go out there and work hard for it.
You said that you were in police foundations.
Oh, yeah.
Do you find that the martial arts helps and your background in physical training?
Especially at least on the level of what Police Foundation's training offers in college, yes, fitness is important. To be honest, if anyone is listening to this and they want to go for Police Foundations or anything law enforcement related and you're not in shape, go to a gym first, guys. Like, you don't want to be falling behind. It's not a good feeling. I can at least say I was able to keep up with everyone. Don't get too absorbed in cardio and don't get too absorbed in strength, because you're going to need a good balance between the both. But
you also need intelligence too, right?
You need intelligence.
You got to read and
you got to flex your
do
mental
logic puzzles.
I think kind of important.
I was actually really surprised when I saw, like, I had a friend that was trying to get into the RCMP.
Oh yeah.
And I was just surprised at how detailed their like, I guess I won't call it mental testing, like just their intelligence tests. Like,
yeah,
it was kind of like
intense screening process.
It was kind of like an LSAT almost, just the way that their exam was like testing their ability to kind of like deduce puzzles and logic.
They have to. I mean, when you know what the RCMP is like, everyone knows what the FBI is in the States, right? It's their major.
That's our FBI.
It's our FBI.
Yeah.
They're the ones who handle the major federal investigations. They've got far more jurisdiction and power than any other police force in the country. They need capable people.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's people listening to this show who really that's their dream, work really hard on improving your mental strength. Definitely, you should learn a second language.
Hit the books.
Study another language, because with how Canada's population is diversifying, you're going to need it. It's going to be more than English and French, guys.
Yeah.
Far more than that. But you need to hit the books. You need to hit the gym. And I'd say, at least if you're really out of shape and you want to get into that fighting shape to be in law enforcement, you got to be going to the gym no less than 4 days a week.
Did you finish the Police Foundation program?
I didn't, actually. I ended up switching gears and going for business marketing.
Business marketing. Okay. But then you've parlayed that interest into being a private investigator.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, what's interesting, I wanted to be a private investigator before I went into Police Foundation. So while I was in it, being a dumb kid at the time who was more concerned with partying and drinking, I didn't really do my research into what it took to become one. If anybody out there wants to become a private investigator, all you need is to be the age of 18, have a clean criminal record, and you finish high school. And then you basically can sign up for an online course or for a course through a college. And once you finish that, you get what's called a training completion number, or a TSN, and that follows you the rest of your career. It's also used for security guards. You go to Serco, which is the company that actually does the drive test.
Yeah.
So drive test centers are actually owned by a group called Serco.
Mm-hmm.
You take your TCN there, you schedule an appointment, do an exam. It's really not that hard. And you come out with what's a training completion number. Then you use that with Service Canada to apply for your license. And all you need at that point is a passport quality photo, another piece of government ID, somebody who can act as a guarantor to sign for you, saying that, hey, they know you and that you are a real person and a Canadian citizen. Proof that you can work in Canada, and that you're set to go. The biggest thing is actually studying and knowing how to apply the techniques you learn. But I guess one of the things that made me want to be an investigator was realizing there's a lot of liars out there. There's a lot of cheats out there, and unfortunately I was the victim of a few of them. I've had people take money from me. I've had women abuse me financially, been cheated on, and part of that came from a desire for just simply wanting to find the truth. And I'll say this to anybody who might be interested in hiring a private investigator, because you're speculating your girlfriend, your fiance, your husband or wife is cheating on you. If you already have that suspicion, and this, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. No, if you have that suspicion, unless you are truly dealing with a very difficult past where you've just had those patterns repeat, there's a reason for your suspicions. And cheating doesn't always mean the other person's sleeping with someone else. Sometimes it's emotional cheating. Sometimes there's financial cheating. Any form of dishonesty where you have to cover your tracks and conceal information from the person you're supposed to trust is infidelity. And I mean, unfortunately, it's very common these days. And people like me make money off it. And that's why, if anyone was to ask me to do a fidelity case for them, I'd have to sit down and talk to them first.
Okay. What are some constraints your job would have as a private investigator from a legal standpoint? Like, what are some things you can't do? Like a hard line?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Like, you guys asked great questions, like I said before. The thing with a private investigator, for one, you cannot call yourself a personal or private detective. You cannot use the term detective. You cannot use the term officer or anything pertaining to a legal title. You are a private investigator. You're a civilian, private sector employee who is hired to investigate anything from insurance fraud, missing persons cases, to fidelity cases, and it's all for the purpose of bringing evidence forward for court. The thing we can't do, we cannot trespass. So you guys have all probably seen shows or read things about private investigators taking pictures of people and doing this and that, recording conversations. So there's a couple of myths to dispel there. For one, as a private investigator, can I follow you if you're in public and I'm investigating you for something? Absolutely. If you have no reasonable expectation of privacy, I can photograph you, I can follow you as much as I want.
Interesting.
I have the license to do it, I can do it.
Just a question about the trespassing. Can a detective trespass?
A detective cannot trespass. The only time a detective can enter a private residence or go on somebody's property is with a court-ordered or issued warrant.
Okay.
And private investigators have no power to get a warrant. The only time we get something anywhere close to that is if we are working a fidelity case, a custody case, or a missing persons case, or even an investigation into insurance fraud, and we talked to a lawyer and they said, okay, you're going to go serve this person their papers, then that's the closest thing we can come to. And a lot of time lawyer firms will hire, and paralegal aides will hire private investigators to help gather evidence for their court cases.
Okay.
We can't record conversations. You've probably all seen a show or a movie where you see the private investigator with this recording device and headphones listening in on a conversation. That's actually illegal.
Yeah, I remember when we worked at TD, especially when we worked outbound, whenever we'd call them, by law, we had to inform them the call was being recorded.
Yes.
I remember. So that probably plays into the same law.
If I was talking to somebody that I was investigating and having a direct conversation with them, being a licensed private investigator, I can record my own conversations without permission.
Okay.
So if I was, say, investigating, Jeff here for insurance fraud, and I was actually talking to him directly, I could have my phone on record and be recording him and not even tell him, and it wouldn't be illegal.
Because he's consented to have the conversation.
Exactly, because I'm the intended recipient.
Okay.
But if I say I'm wanting to catch somebody for committing theft or fraud in a company, and I got somebody else working with me who's willing to go and be part of an undercover operation to talk to this person and see if they can get information out of them, and record the audio information for evidence in court, as proof of incrimination or a statement, I can't record that person myself. I can't record that conversation between two people from a distance.
That's why he's got to take the mic with him.
He would have to. I would have to get written consent from the person working for me, with the date and the time and his written consent to record his conversation with this person, because I'm not the intended recipient. He is.
That would be a really interesting conversation to have.
Yeah.
Before the operation begins, you're just kind of talking about how you're gonna do all of this.
Well, exactly, and it's like, so he would have to give me his permission. The other guy doesn't have to know a damn thing. So I'd, of course, have to trust this other person, too. But the other guy doesn't need to know anything, because the intended recipient that he's communicating to is them, and the intended recipient is allowing me to record them. So at that point, it's legal. If you legally record someone, the evidence, even if it proves the claim true or the person guilty of an offense, the evidence will be inadmissible in court if it's illegally obtained.
Well, obviously, you agree with this law because it supports your business, but don't you feel that there is some violations of privacy there?
There is. It really, and this is where you have to kind of have a moral compass, and you have to decide what you take on and what you don't. Again, with a fidelity case, the main goal should be for you and the client is for the client to receive the closure they need and the absolute proof they need. And if there's children involved, it can sometimes branch out into, is this person competent enough to have shared custody or to look after the children?
Yes, that makes sense.
And of course that has to be a primary concern. But ultimately, you're there to give your client a peace of mind. Unfortunately, there has to be a price on it because, hey, everybody needs to live and eat.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, in terms of the morality of it, when somebody breaches a moral obligation to another person, that in a way is in a sense forfeited, because everybody has a right to the truth, especially if you're in a relationship where you're supposed to trust this other person and they're violating your trust, and that can result in the transmitting of sexual diseases. It can result in the theft of money from a shared bank account. It could result in neglect of children.
Or supporting of someone whose child you think is yours but isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then that in itself is a form of fraud and theft. So what a PI's job is to be as an instrument in gathering the truth.
Have you ever had to work with other people, just given the nature of a case that you've taken where you needed coordination?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I haven't taken on any cases yet.
Yeah.
I've had a few come my way where they're pending. I'm playing it safe and waiting till Service Ontario sends me my license in the mail. Everything's in process for all intents and purposes. I am a licensed private investigator, but I refuse to do anything until I have the actual license, because if I'm working and somebody catches on and they said, I want to see your license, if I fail to produce my license, I can be charged with an offense.
Okay.
And that's a hefty fine. So I cannot physically leave the house once I get it without my license, and I cannot physically do this work without my actual license on my person.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, again, my evidence could be thrown out in court.
It's just like getting pulled over when you don't have your license,
Yeah,
kind of same
Exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Except any civilian at any point, if they suspect me of doing any kind of undercover work like that, can say, oh, are you a private investigator? Yes. All right, can you show me your license? And if I fail to produce it, they can call the cops on me and have me arrested. So, just as many laws as there are in place and kind of, I guess, leniencies towards private investigators that protect us so that we can do our job, there's also a lot of laws that will kind of screw us over and, that are meant to protect people. And that's the thing. There are people out there who would abuse their license. There are people out there who would abuse their career, and that's unacceptable. And actually, it's funny, a lot of the time the ministry can hire another investigator to investigate that investigator. So
Inception.
Yeah.
yeah, investigation inception, right?
What are some other myths that a lot of people mistake,
lot
or
of
some
people
other misconceptions?
Well, I mean, there might be the rare circumstances where, as a private investigator, you may have to use your constitutional right to arrest somebody in terms of using citizens' arrest powers, but we actually don't have any powers of arrest. We don't have a license unless we have a firearm license and a concealed carry permit. We are not allowed to carry firearms. We're not allowed to carry handcuffs.
Yeah.
The other question, you said you mentioned citizens' arrests. What constitutes a proper citizens' arrest?
So under Section 494 of the Canadian Criminal Code, if beyond reasonable doubt you see somebody or are aware of someone committing an indictable offense, you actually have the ability to arrest them and detain them until the police show up.
Like, let's say I see somebody vandalize a store window.
That's a chargeable offense. I wouldn't necessarily say that's an indictable offense, but if you saw somebody, say, beating an old woman and stealing her purse, and you drop that to the ground and arrest them,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that's an indictable offense. If you see someone committing murder or theft over, I think it's $3,000. If you see somebody committing an indictable offense of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
you know for sure they're getting arrested and going to jail. You can arrest them.
Interesting.
Anybody listening to the show can arrest them. You guys could arrest them. It's true. Like anybody can do their part to help protect society. You just have to know when and how you can go about doing it. Of course, you can't go beyond reasonable force either, because that can come back on you. So you really got to pick and choose your battles. As a PI, there's a chance that could happen, but that's actually something in a lot of ways that would be more applicable to a security guard. Which those guys aren't really paid enough. I mean, a lot of them make minimum wage, and they sometimes get people trying to stab them.
And they have to go get the license too, and they don't get paid for that.
Nope.
That comes out of pocket.
Out of pocket. And they don't get paid a lot.
The company doesn't subsidize it for them.
No, they I mean, me working in a factory right now, putting together the Toyota RAV4, I get paid more money than a guy who's paid to stand outside Jack's and make sure nobody tries to get in illegally or tries to stab anybody. And in my opinion, that's actually wrong.
Yeah.
I think
That's
these
an
guys
interesting
should get danger
comparison.
pay. It goes to show you, it's like, how come a guy working, a restaurant job can make more money than the guy who's actually being paid to protect them, because he's making tips. This guy who's protecting them and everybody in there, and could potentially get stabbed, because heck, I was working at Jack's when a knife attack happened there. All of us working security could have gotten stabbed. Almost 2 years ago, I was working at a call center, and actually that night I was support staff, so I was just mostly helping clean up the place. And a guy pulled a knife, started going crazy on the dance floor. And the thing is that
Was this guy like a like
knife?
like I don't want to say a crazy person, but like
I don't know what his problem was. I just know he pulled the knife, and I ended up helping out. But the thing is that anybody could have gotten stabbed in that circumstance. Anybody working there, especially as security guys who have the obligation to protect the patrons in the bar that night, they should be getting danger pay.
Mm-hmm.
They should be making more than $14 an hour. That's criminal.
Mm-hmm.
That's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, to kind of come back to some of the myths about private investigators, aside from not being able to arrest anybody or just record conversations willy-nilly, there's a show called Magnum PI. There was an older one with Tom Selleck and a newer one that's out.
Tom Selleck.
It was funny, the mustache, right? That thing had power and authority on its own.
Does the new guy have a mustache too?
Yeah, but it's nowhere near as glorious.
Okay.
It's kind of pathetic. But he's got the Hawaiian shirts at least and the aviator glasses. But my dad actually called me up. He's like, "Hey, you're a PI." Like, I kind of questioned, like, it was a good one, but it was stupid. On the show, the character Magnum, he's been hired to investigate somebody, and yeah, you can take pictures using your cell phone camera. I mean, that's a very covert way to do your job. It's better than pulling out a big Nikon or something with the massive lens on it and taking a picture of somebody. But the main character goes up to a window and takes a picture of a couple cheating in there. Well, there's several things wrong with that. You cannot do that. Even if you're tailing somebody, you're allowed to tail somebody to their home, but you cannot step a single foot on their property. So you have to stay on city property where it's considered public access, and you cannot go up to their window and take a picture. They can arrest you for that.
Oh.
That's a huge offense.
And any photos that you take of them in their home can't be admissible.
Even if it's
court.
even if it's incriminating, you see the guy jumping the girl or vice versa, or the guy jumping the other guy, like the woman with the woman. Doesn't matter who. You see that and you take a picture and you've illegally obtained that information. It's inadmissible in court.
that's like things like that, little like loopholes like that. Sometimes it just makes me feel so angry that like they can be taken advantage of.
What if it's a CCTV camera though, and could that be used as supporting evidence for the woman who's charging the guy if she were to be attacked?
Oh, if a woman was being attacked and he was recorded on a CCTV camera that was installed in the home or in the workplace, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because for one, it was installed there with her knowledge. Mm. It's just me as an outside agent, I cannot do that.
Okay.
I can't take the picture, even if they're like, even if it's a cheating spouse or something, and I'm right up to them, I'm like, oh, this is juicy. I can't do anything with that. I could get arrested for that.
But what about the whole idea of you doing it and showing it to your client for the peace of mind?
That's still a moral gray area because I still illegally I trespassed at that point.
What if you like tell them like, oh, I saw it, even though you didn't take a picture? Like let's say that you're spying on them, like or let's say you're just on the sidewalk, right?
Well, and if you're on the sidewalk.
You're at the point where you see them, and you can't take a picture of them, like you're saying. Right? Because they're in their house.
I can take a picture. No, I'll clarify. I can take a picture of them if they're in their house and they leave the curtains open.
Ooh, interesting.
So if I can see it right from the street and I'm on the sidewalk, which is owned by the city, not by them, mm-hmm. I can do that. But if I step a toe on the grass and I take a picture, or if I go right up to the window because they drew the curtains and I want to get a better angle mm-hmm. to incriminate this person, that's illegal. But if their curtains are open, they have no reasonable expectation for privacy. Going
back to the point where you're on their property and you do see them, but you don't take a picture of them, but you see them and you verbally communicate that you saw them to your client. So that's what I'm kind of
on a moral level. I would definitely verbally communicate that to a client mm-hmm. because at that point, the client has to make a decision what he's going to do with his or her relationship.
But what use would that be to the client without proof?
I'm not breaking the law if I've seen them go in the house together.
Okay.
I mean, especially if I'm on the street, or even in the parking lot out front of their home, mm-hmm. I haven't broken the law.
But wouldn't you think if you were the client, you'd need more than just your
if he wants
investigator's word?
If he wants more than my word, then I'm going to have to wait until I can legally obtain the actual proof, because I can't illegally obtain it and give it to him, especially if he uses that in his divorce settlement. Yeah. Or if he tries to use that to nullify the prenups or whatever, or to get custody. I can't do that.
That'd be a really bad Google review.
There's always the possibility.
He told me, but he didn't show me.
Because 1.5 stars, not even half a star.
There's always the possibility of you just lying so that you can expedite payment. Just be like, yeah, she's cheating. That's it.
And that's the thing. There's things in place to protect that. So as a private investigator, what I would do and what I plan to do with my current business model I have set up, there's an upfront charge for initiating the investigation, and then there's a closing fee. So there's the upfront charge, and then depending on the hours and the amount of time they need me to investigate, and the resources it takes to investigate this, say, you know, I've got to burn gas or whatever, I got to get whatever piece of equipment to make sure I actually catch this happening, then I will also apply an hourly fee on top of the fee to open the case and then the fee to close the case. So I'm still protected. I'm still making my money. This guy's still getting his answers. If I feel at any point I can't provide him with the answers he's looking for, I will recommend we close the case and refer him to another investigator. You know, it's kind of like with a counselor that way. If you don't feel like you're a good fit for your client, you've got to close that day, and you've got to just send them off to somebody else who can help them.
Say you've put in like 2 weeks of work. Do you get paid for that 2 weeks and just not get the closing fee?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the closing fee is obviously what I want, but I'm obviously going to make sure I'm paid for those 2 weeks because I've got to keep a roof over my head. I've got to support me and my girlfriend. You know, I've got to eat.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to be any good if I'm emaciated and in the hospital because I haven't been eating. You know.
How do you plan on putting yourself out there? Like you said, you're waiting on the license from Service Ontario, which obviously is going to take, you know, an indefinite amount of time. But since you're on like the show right now, like, is there any like platforms or any ways that people can follow you to learn more about you?
Yeah. So I myself am on Facebook. You know, just my name the way it is, but I have a group that I'm actually publishing on Facebook called London Private Investigations Team.
Okay.
There is going to be me and one other investigator part of that. He's finishing up his course right now, and we'll be accepting private messages through that account for people looking for a quote or for information. Like initial consultations are free right now. We're not going to charge money for a consultation, only to open up a case, to sustain a case, and to close a case.
Okay, what was that group called again?
London Private Investigations Team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Collective Journey. If you or somebody you know would like to be on the show, hit us up on any of our social media. We are Collective Journey on Facebook. We are Collective Journey on YouTube. We are Collective_Journey on Instagram. And always remember, this is not just my adventure, but it's yours as well. This is our collective journey.